So Gen 5 is just around the corner for Pokemon Go. And of course people want to know, who are the Gen 5 raid bosses, the Tier 5 ones, the big dogs, the Legendaries, and how difficult are these raids going to be? Can we duo them, or are they going to have to be trios? Which Pokemon should I be looking at powering up? Well, this video is going to basically cover who these raid bosses are, which Pokemon are going to be able to handle them, and if you will be able to achieve the duo or not. Now, as far as the data goes for this, I used Go Battle Sim on GamePress, where we already have all the stats for all the Pokemon entered. We don't know what the move pools are. That's the information we need from the Game Master. But because a raid boss, your ability to duo it or trio it, is mostly contingent on its stats, we can get a rough working idea of how things are going to work out. For the Pokemon that are a little bit close, like maybe duoable, kinda hard, the moveset could swing things in one way or another. So when the time comes, we get the Game Master information, I'll have a more updated list for you guys. But for the time being, I'm pretty sure we're like 95% accuracy here. You guys got it going on. And smooth things out, I will be using the Pokemon list on GamePress. Right now I have it sorted by Gen 5 and Fire-type Pokemon. The stats for most Gen 5 Pokemon have been updated on this list, and Pokemon that do have their CP over 4,000 already have the 9% nerf applied. So if you do want to take a glimpse at what's coming up in the future, you can always use this list. And if you're curious what the best top 10 Gen 5 raid attackers are likely going to be, you can check out the article on GamePress, or you can check out my video on that article. Links in the description to that to get a better working idea of what we have coming up in the future. But let's start out with the raid bosses, and who better to start out with but Reshiram. So Reshiram here is a Dragon Fire-type Pokemon, defense stat of 211. Now the defense stat is what's important here for duos and trios and stuff like that, because this will limit how much damage you can deal to the raid boss. And at the end of the day, that's the main factor that determines if you can duo or trio, or the difficulty of the raid boss, if you will. For example, take the Regis. The Regis have massive defense stats, so even though the fights were very straightforward, they were difficult. You need more people because the defenses were so high. So defense stat, important to pay attention to. And then their typing. This Pokemon is a Dragon Fire-type Pokemon, and what their type is, shapes which Pokemon are going to be able to come at them the best. So when it comes to this guy, using ground types, dragon types, fairy types, and rock types are probably going to be some of the better options to take this on. You might think ice type Pokemon take on dragons, while that fire typing is shielding it from that nonsense. And if you're thinking about water type Pokemon, take on the fire, while the dragon typing shields it from that nonsense. The best Pokemon that you can use to take on this guy will be Rayquaza, the best Dragon-type Pokemon out there, or any other Dragon-type Pokemon such as Salamence, Dragonite, Garchomp, the whole Gambit, and Rampardos, the Rock-type DPS King Supreme. And as far as Rayquaza and Rampardos are concerned, this is a pretty straightforward and easy duo if you are up against a Fire-type moveset. So if Reshiram is busting out the Fire Fang with Overheat or Flamethrower or any fire-type charge move, this will be a very easy duo. Now, if it's whipping out Dragon Tail and Outrage, which is a bread-and-butter Dragon-type moveset, which I expect it to have, then it will be a pretty tough duo. It will come down to your relobbying time. Maybe you'll have some King Ive nonsense going on where you've got a ton of Rayquazas set up and ready to go, so you don't have to max survive. But if you are up against a Dragon-type moveset, that will be the harder duo, but the duo is still achievable. Next up, we have Zekrom. So Zekrom and Reshiram kind of make a duo. It's technically a trio if you consider Kyurem or Kyurem. If you consider that guy, it's kind of like a trio, but they feel like a duo. You got Pokemon Black and White, that's Gen 5. Reshiram's the white, and then this guy is the black, but I think they had the Legendaries inverted. So for the games themselves, let's not worry about that. Let's worry about Zekrom here. So Zekrom is a Dragon Electric type Pokemon. So the electric typing suggests that ground types will be good against this guy, and then the dragon typing suggests that ice types, so thinking Mamoswine, will be good against this guy. And then of course you've got the dragon type King Rayquaza coming in here to fight this guy. Now, because of the electric attacks, Rayquaza actually has a rough time. That's heavy neutral damage coming at it. So if this is using a more aggressive moveset like Wild Charge, then it will be a pretty tough duo for Rayquaza to pull off. And then of course the dragon type movesets will be as difficult as Reshiram. I didn't talk about the stats. Reshiram and Zekrom do have the same exact stats. Different Pokemon, same stats, what to say. But yeah, so this could be a pretty formidable duo to pull off. One Pokemon I didn't look at in the live stream, and I didn't check the stats for after the fact, were Garchomp. And Garchomp is like slightly less DPS than the Rayquaza, but it does have that ground subtyping. So if you're up against the electric type moveset, I think it will be a relatively smooth duo based off of what data I have with Garchomp. So hopefully we get that Garchomp Community Day before Zekrom comes up to spoil the show. And as far as the Garchomp moveset you're going to use, it's going to be Dragon Tail and Outrage. As far as Mamoswine goes, Mamoswine's DPS is just a little bit too short. It's like, you know, I wish it was a little bit higher, but it's not. If you got the icy weather going on, snowing outside, maybe it'll be snowing by the time we get this guy, well then Mamoswine will have the duo on lock, but then that's a weather duo, and where's the fun in that, right? So overall, Reshiram is an easier clear because of the fire-type movesets. Dragons resist fire. This guy is going to be a little bit more difficult unless you've got a ton of Garchomps at your disposal. Me personally, I have 0 Garchomps, so I expect a lot of people to have 0 Garchomps. Hopefully we get that Community Day. But yeah, so very tight duo, easy trio, of course. Then to wrap this up, we're going to look at Kyurem, or Kyurem, Kyurem, however you want to pronounce it. Comment below. Let me know how you like to say Kyurem, Kyurem. Yeah, and then as far as which one I'm going to pull up for you guys, I'm going to pull up the black or the white one. I'm just going to go with the white one. They're the same exact Pokemon, same typing, Dragon Ice. And then there's the base form, which is like Kyurem, not merged with Reshiram or Zekrom. So it's got lower stats, but the defense stat is higher. So main thing to take away from that. Will we see all 3 of these forms? Likely. I think so. The white and the black forms might be EX raid bosses, though. But we'll have to see what Pokemon does. Now, who is going to be the ace in the hole against all 3 of these raid bosses? Well, Metagross, of course. They are Dragon Ice-type Pokemon. So if they're whipping out Dragon and Ice-type attacks, Metagross resists them. And because they're Ice-type Pokemon, Metagross hits super effectively. So these are going to be very straightforward and smooth duos with Metagross. Of course, this is with the Meteor Mash Metagross, which is a little bit more exclusive. So if you don't have a whole squad of them ready, well then you might want to be looking at your Machamp squad. As far as Machamps go, I didn't look at them specifically. I just kind of like looked at Metagross and moved on with my life. You might need Cloudy Weather for that. When we get the Game Master out, I will make a cool graph showing all the different counters to the Kyurem forms, and then I can let you know how well Machamp is faring. Then moving on, we have the Forces of Nature, also known as the Genie Pokemon. So we got Landorus, Thunderous, and Tornadus. Now, as far as they go, they have 2 forms. They have a Incarnate form, or like a base Genie form, and then they have a Therian form, which is more like an animal form. 2 of them kind of look like cats. One of them is definitely a bird. So as far as Landorus goes, the Landorus Incarnate form is going to be the harder raid boss to beat because it's got the higher defense stat. Landorus Therian form will be the more powerful form for PvP and raids. As far as the Incarnate form goes and the Therian form, they're both flying ground type Pokemon, which means they are doubly weak to Mamoswine, which means this fight is just easily destroyed by Mamoswine. You will get the duo in with Mamos, no questions asked, and just because Kingler recently got the Crab Hammer and has been crowned the water type King Supreme, Kingler can actually achieve the duo. It's pretty close with the Kinglers. I mean, obviously you're hitting for single super effective damage, not double super effective like Mamo is, but even Kingler could potentially achieve the duo on this, and I'm looking forward to the YouTube video where people do duo these guys using the Kinglers. That'd be pretty hype. Next up is Thunderous. Thunderous is the same deal going on as Landorus, where the Incarnate form is going to be the harder raid, but the Therian form is going to be the more powerful attacker. Either way, both of these electric types are pretty hype and very powerful, so I'm pretty excited to get them in Pokemon Go. And our boy Thunderous here is exactly like Zapdos, electric flying type Pokemon. So very clearly, Mamoswine is going to be the king, the bread and butter of this raid boss, resisting those hits and hitting for super effective damage. And because of the low defense stat of 164, it is going to be a pretty easy duo with Mamoswines. So if you haven't revved up your Mamoswines already for the Rayquaza raids that we've been having going on in the world right now, well, rev them up anyways. Start getting on that, because you got 4 raid bosses coming up in Gen 5 where Mamoswine is going to be the name of the game. Then next up we have Tornadus, and between the legendary genies, the forces of nature, whatever you like to refer to them as, the Therian form of Tornadus is actually going to be the harder raid boss, sporting a higher defense stat than the incarnate form. So against the incarnate form, Mamoswine works really well for the duo, but the Therian form actually a little bit harder. Oh yeah, and cool unique thing about Tornadus, both the incarnate and the Therian form, is that they are pure flying type Pokemon. So you might think pure flying type Pokemon, what's the big deal there? It's not that big of a deal as far as fighting it as a raid boss goes, but as far as Pokemon goes, most flying type Pokemon have a secondary type, like Pidgeot, and those guys, they're flying normal types. So Noctowl, flying normal. And then you got like the legendary birds, and of course you got flying Psychic, Lugia, flying Electric, Zapdos. So this is one of the few Pokemon to come out to date that is a pure, unadulterated flying type Pokemon. That doesn't really mean a whole lot for us in raids, because if it was flying normal, then the fighting types are going to be neutrally effective, so it doesn't even matter. But it's just something interesting to highlight about Tornadus. Pure flying type Pokemon. And one thing I didn't notice right away when I was on the live stream getting the data for this is that being a pure flying type Pokemon, that means Electivire and Raikou just come up and just maul the heck out of this guy. So I did get data on that during the live stream, and I found out that even though Mamoswine can't exactly duo the Therian form of Tornadus, Electivire has a pretty easy time with it. And I expect this guy to have mostly flying type attacks, which means the Electric, Electivire, and Raikou, of course, and Magnezone by extension, they will resist those hits and have an even easier time with taking this guy on. So pretty easy duo with Electivires, Raikous, maybe Magnezones. I don't know if Magnezone has too short of DPS, but definitely with Raikou and Electivires, this guy will be duoable. And that brings us to our finale, the final four, or maybe three. The Three Musketeers, the Four Musketeers, the Swords of Justice, the 4 fighting type legendary, or 3 fighting type legendary, 1 mythic Pokemon that we may experience in Gen 5. You got Cobalion, Virizion, Terrakion, and Keldeo. So between this quad, Keldeo is technically a mythic Pokemon, but because it's fits right in line with the quad, I could see it being added to the raid boss pool, or maybe it could be a EX raid boss. I think we'll end up fighting Keldeo. So starting out, we got Terrakion. And I actually made a graph of this guy for my recent Crabhammer content. So we already have a pretty good idea of how doable this guy is. And yep, with Metagross, this guy gets hammered down. I mean, you're a fighting rock type Pokemon, so the fighting type makes you weak to the psychic type attacks, but the rock type, that's the real clincher. And this guy's weak to everything. You got water types raining on him, grass types beating down on him, ground types beating down on him, and then of course steel types. Metagross. Pretty easy duo with Metagross. Now if you're curious about Machamp technically can duo it, but it will be pretty close, because if it has a more aggressive moveset, then you will have to re-lobby with your Machamps, and then that hurts your ability to do the duo with it, but it is achievable with Machamps as well, so yeah. Metagross is a pretty common theme though with all these Gen 5 raid bosses, so if you don't have some Meteor Mash Metagrosses already stockpiled, maybe start stockpiling some high IV Beldums, maybe start lucky trading for Beldums, because I suspect over the winter we will have another Community Day Evolution event where we can get all those exclusive moves again, and getting a good lineup of Metagrosses seems pretty good for Gen 5, specifically for gads like this. But yeah, with weather, all sorts of weather, common forms of weather, this guy can be beaten down pretty handily as well. So yeah, Terrakion, get wrecked. You're a duo, no matter how you cut it. Probably one of the easiest raid bosses we'll end up fighting in the coming generation. Next up, we got Virizion. Likely to be misspelled as Verizon on everybody's Discord servers and text messages, stuff like that. This is a fighting grass-type Pokemon. Now, grass-type Pokemon are weak to flying. Fighting-type Pokemon, also weak to flying. So this guy is doubly weak to flying-type attacks. So if you've got the double flying exclusive Moltres, well then obviously Virizion is going to be annihilated, but even lesser flying type Pokemon will be able to get this job in, such as Sky Attack Honchkrow and Double Flying Rayquaza. They both get the job in, and I think I looked at some more niche flying types as well. They're like good, but they're obviously not like Honchkrow, Rayquaza, Moltres good, and even they are able to get the duo in. So this guy will be pretty easy as long as you're bringing the flying type Pokemon. And now we come to the hardest Tier 5 raid boss of Gen 5, one that you likely will not be able to duo without a weather boost, and that is Cobalion. Now, one thing you might not have noticed with Virizion, because I didn't point it out for you, is that it has a really high defense stat, 229. So both Virizion and Cobalion have the same stats because the 4 Musketeers, they have like reflecting stats of each other involving attack, special attack, defense, and special defense. And then since Pokemon Go merges special defense and attack and special attack, they end up having parallel stats depending on if they're the defensive or the offensive variant, right? So both Virizion and Cobalion have a 229 defense stat. Doesn't matter for Virizion because it's doubly weak, but Cobalion over here doesn't have a double weakness. It is a fighting steel type Pokemon, so it's actually pretty formidable. Now the fighting type is weak to flying and psychic, but because of the steel typing, those types don't matter. Psychic resisted, flying types resisted, so you will need to bring like fighting, fire, and ground type Pokemon to take this guy on. Now the highest potential fighting and fire combo DPS we have is with our counter Blastburn Blazikens, and I found that they weren't able to do it. They weren't making the duo. So then I turned to Cloudy Weather Machamps. Cloudy Weather Machamps, they got the duo. Then of course the Fire Spin, Blastburn Blazikens, and Clear Weather, they were also able to do it. So this guy, is it a weatherless duo? No, it is a weatherless trio. Very likely at least. And then as far as the duo goes, you will need a weather boost to take this guy on. So watch the skies and prepare yourself for this annoying hunk of metal. It will probably be pretty painful for your local communities to take on. And then, yeah, dude, Aggron. If people are bringing the Aggron gang, they're going to get brutalized as well because, like, Aggron's doubly resisted. You whipping out those rock-type attacks, yeah, fighting resists, steel-type resists, so this is definitely a no Aggron raid. Then finally, we have Keldeo. Now, Keldeo is technically a mythic Pokemon, but I'm pretty sure we're going to see it in the Tier 5 raid pool, maybe as an EX raid boss, because it fits in so snugly with this quad. So I'm pretty sure we will see this guy and fight it in some capacity. If not, whatever. Like, no skin off our backs, right? Now, this guy here is a fighting water-type Pokemon. So vulnerable to grass and electric, psychic, and flying. And of course, these psychic and flying types do have the higher potential DPS. And our best flying type Pokemon right now is Moltres. So Moltres is a fire type Pokemon. It will be weak to the water type attacks, but not all the attacks it's going to be carrying 100% of the time are going to be water. So important to keep in mind if it's a double fighting moveset. What does Moltres care? It's using flying type attacks, right? And Moltres will be able to duo this guy. Mewtwo with Confusion and Psychic, or Confusion and Psystrike, if you got the Psystrike Mewtwo's instead. They're about the same in performance. If you want more details, you can check out my video on it. Link in the description. Psystrike Mewtwo. At any rate, Mewtwo and Moltres, they got this guy. It is a duo. Now, as far as the water side of it goes, the electric side of the force, if you will, Electivire is like almost there. When I did the basic simulation on Go Battle Sim, I found that it had like roughly a 25% chance to duo it with nothing but Electivires. So if you are bringing in Electivire, you might want to back it up with some Moltres or Mewtwo's if you have them to help smooth out the duo. But if you are trying to do like an electric only challenge or something like that, well, it's going to be a little bit of a rougher time. Oh yeah, and how soon am I forgetting the Genesect? Genesect here is like the Mewtwo of Gen 5. It is a bug steel type Pokemon, and the lore behind it is actually quite similar to Mewtwo, which is kind of interesting. Basically, they found like this ancient bug fossil, and then like the bad team of the game like revitalized it, and then they armored it, because of course that's what the bad teams do. They revitalize something, and then they armor it. And unlike Mewtwo, this armor sticks, right? And it gives it a steel typing. So Genesect, the Mewtwo of this game, if you will, it's actually more like the Deoxys, and I'm pretty sure we are going to see it in the EX raid pool. So being a bug steel type Pokemon, fire type Pokemon, absolutely destroy this guy. And given the low defense stat, 199, I mean, that's not super low, but it's lower than the hard stuff, right? Yeah, any fire type basically obliterates this thing. So there you have it. Gen 5, Tier 5 raid bosses, some EX raid bosses sprinkled on in there. Can they be duoed? Most of them, yeah, they all look like pretty easy duos for the most part. Some of them can be a little bit close. As far as which Pokemon power up now, Metagross looking extremely hot, and I don't see anything replacing it in its Steel-type role. Even Cobalion definitely cannot compete with the Metagross. So, Meteor Mash Metagrosses, if you got them, maybe start powering them up, or maybe start saving up some Metagross candy so you can power up when the time's right. Could be a better idea to save your Stardust until you actually need it. And then Mamoswine, of course. Mamoswine, before we only used it for Rayquaza. Now we've got like several things to use it on. You got 2 flavors of Landorus and 2 flavors of Thunderous coming up. Mamoswine's going to be a pretty big boss. Yeah. As far as the more close counters go there, the ones that are maybe doable, we will have to wait until we see a Game Master for this to see just how viable those are, because if your Pokemon are fainting too quickly, well then you will not be able to make the time as easily, but for the vast majority of them, looks pretty easy. Now, as far as the last raid boss we have for Gen 4 here, Regigigas, if you are curious, it is a trio with Machamps. That's a Gen 4 raid boss. Trio with Machamps. If you got cloudy weather, you can do the duo then. Now, if you like this content, you want to see more like it, maybe you want some detailed graphs when the raids actually happen with the correct movesets, well then make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. And if you got any questions on this content, comment below, let me know what's up, I'll be happy to help you out. You know, the more I look at this picture, the more kind of creepy it is. Like, the other Therian forms, I'm not too creeped out by, but this one, I don't know, it's like, I'm a bird, but I'm also a man. I'm the bird man.